an Olympic winning tumbler or gymnast or kung fu artist, whatever. And she married an athlete. And the athlete said that I would probably be the best thing she would ever have. While people tried to talk me into jumping on the disco bandwagon, I just couldn't do it. Like those boots and knickers Vicky wanted me to wear, I just didn't feel it. Part of finding out who you are is finding out who you're not. Word. I had spent the last 6 years of my life learning that lesson the hard way. Now that I had finally found the strength to reclaim my music, myself, my life, I wasn't about to give it up for any price. That decision cost me a lot in both record sales and popularity, but I didn't care. Pause. It's not many disco artists who were able to successfully get past disco. Y'all know that disco is among my top 3 favorite music genres. A lot of black artists rose during the disco era. She was there before, but not mainstream enough. If she would have got on board with that disco, as much as I love disco, I believe Patti LaBelle would have died with disco. So I'm kind of glad she didn't. As far as I was concerned, the price of doing it anyway but my way was a whole lot higher. It just wouldn't be real. When it came to disco, I agreed with author and music critic Nelson George, love him, who said it was music with a metronome-like beat, perfect for folks with no sense of rhythm. Well, damn, that speaks volumes for me, because y'all know I can't dance to save my life. I stuck to my guns and pulled through it somehow. With the exception of the Starrats period, I have always been blessed to be able to get concert work even when I don't have a hit record. That held true even during disco fever. This wound up being a busy period for me. I hadn't seen much of my sisters while I was out on the road, and one day when I was home, I decided to visit them at the house on Washington Avenue. When Barbara came down the stairs, it was clear something was wrong with her, and it wasn't the flu as she had tried to make me believe before. She was so thin and so frail, she looked like one of those starving children you see on the TV commercial fundraisers. I was shocked. I was stunned. But most of all, I was scared. Pause. Let's talk about them children on them TV fundraisers, girl. My grandmother used to scare the hell out of me. You better eat your food. Mama, I don't want this. You want to look like them kids with all them flies around their head? No, Mama, I don't want to look like that. Well, you better eat them fucking Brussels sprouts. Tell me the truth, I demanded. What's really wrong with you? That's when she told me she had colon cancer. The following year, when my contract with Epic ran out, I signed with Philadelphia International Records. The label was owned and run by my old friend, singer-lyricist Kenny Gamble, and his partner, pianist-arranger Leon Huff, who I hadn't worked with since we recorded the Laura Nyro album. I don't know who was more excited, Kenny or me. For one thing, we were old friends going back to the days when we used to drink beer together in the alley behind my house. For another, Kenny said he was sure he could get a #1 hit with me, and he was so talented. I believed him. He did it, but it didn't happen right away. The first album I recorded with him, The Spirits in It, didn't even crack the top 100. Still, it brought me some magical moments. When I was previewing it at a 4-night engagement at the Savoy in New York, both Nona and Sarah paid surprise visits to the show on separate nights. This wasn't the first time we had reconnected after the breakup of LaBelle. I had called Nona on her birthday about 9 months after the split. I talked with Sarah shortly after that. We all ran into each other at the Aretha Franklin concert at Carnegie Hall in May 1978. But there was something even more special about their coming to see me at the Savoy. When Sarah came on closing night, the audience was thrilled when she joined me on stage to sing "You Are My Friend." I was thrilled too. Whatever our differences had been, I hoped Sarah could feel that I meant every word that wonderful night. I think she did. Years later, she asked me to duet with her on the cut "You're All I Need to Get By" on her solo album for EMI. Since my solo albums were not selling big, Armstead had been talking to me for months about broadening my appeal. Slowly but surely, he had been taking over the management of my career. And when Barry and Fran Wessler, the producers of the gospel music "Your Arms Too Short to Box with God," contacted me about starring in the show for a 1981-82 run, Armstead had very simple advice: go for it. My response was even more simple than that: no way. And I mean it. To make a long story short, Armstead talked me into it. After 9 months touring the country, "Your Arms Too Short" made history on September 2nd, 1982. When this incarnation made its Broadway debut at the Alvin Theater, it was the third Broadway opening for the show since 1976. No other musical had opened on the Great White Way so many times in such a short period. The Born Again award-winning singing star Al Green, ordained pastor of the Full Gospel Tabernacle of Memphis, joined the cast for what was supposed to be a 4-week run. We wound up being extended 3 times to a total of 10 weeks due to the rave reviews and popular demand. Opening night was a star-studded affair. In the house were Cicely Tyson and her husband, Miles Davis, Nick Ashford and Valerie Simpson, Patti Austin, Mary Wilson, Stephanie Mills, Millie Jackson, Reverend Ike, and Sarah Dash, and Nona Hendrix. After the show, a motorcade of limos headed for the post-performance party at the Palace. I bet you that was something. It was during the show's Broadway run that Nona and I got together again. After she came to see me on the opening night, I went to see her at the Ritz where she was performing. I ended up doing more than watching the show. I performed in it. After Nona asked me to come on stage and sing with her, we did 2 numbers: "What Can I Do For You?" and "Do What You Want to Do." It was Broadway when Barbara had to be hospitalized. When I talked to Armstead, I could tell by what he didn't say that she was fading. I made it to Philly to Barbara's side, and I made it back to New York for the evening show. Al earned a Tony nomination for his work in "Your Arms Too Short," and whatever our differences, I still felt good for him because he gave that show his all. Differences meaning when Patti LaBelle had opened for him, he was mad as hell because she wore the crowd out. And Al Green was like, how am I supposed to follow her? This girl kicking off her shoes, rolling around on the ground, all I do is sweat. Child, I get it. 2 months after we buried Barbara, I was a mess. Emotionally raw and physically exhausted. As much as I loved doing "Your Arms Too Short," it was draining doing daily shows and 2 on Sundays. That is something that I've heard from every single theater actor. 2 months after we buried Barbara, I was a mess, emotionally raw and physically exhausted. As much as I loved doing "Your Arms Too Short," it was draining doing daily shows and 2 on Sunday. I was desperately in need of a lift. Only time would dull the pain of losing my sister, but I had to do something to raise my spirits anything to distract myself from the sadness. One evening, Stephanie Mills, the award-winning singer who starred as Dorothy in the Broadway production of The Wiz, came to visit me in Philly. From the moment Stephanie walked through the door, I couldn't stop staring at her. She looked so radiant, so rested, so refined. I started firing questions at her. Girl, who's doing your hair? Are you wearing new makeup? Do you have a new stylist? Give me the name of whatever spa you've been going to. That's when Stephanie gave me the 411 on her new look. It wasn't the hair, the makeup, or the clothes. It was her nose. Pause. Let's not forget. Part of the reason why Stephanie Mills was not casted in the movie, outside of Diana Ross going to Barry saying, Barry, I want to do it, and Barry saying, okay, was because they did not find Stephanie Mills attractive. I mean, what's that little lady who is a gymnast? She's so small and teeny, and her boyfriend just came out and said, hell, I'm a come up for her. She is an Olympic winning tumbler or gymnast or kung fu artist, whatever, and she married an athlete, and the athlete said that I would probably be the best thing she would ever have, and she pursued me and basically wore me down because I'm a prize for her. Damn, I forget her name. It's something Biles, Simone Biles. That's who it is. It took me that long to get it, y'all. And to me, Simone Biles and Stephanie Mills look like the same damn person. The truth about why Stephanie Mills was not casted was because they considered her too unattractive. I don't know. Me being a big nose girl myself, I can't really say what is or is not attractive. You know, people still called me cute even though my nose was large. And it is large. I don't know. I guess it grew into my body. So at this point, Stephanie Mills had gotten her nose job, which I believed tremendously helped her career. Now, Patti LaBelle, on the other hand, she did have what would be considered a large nose, but to me, it didn't take away from her beauty at all. Not, you know, she's not the best looking woman in the world. Neither am I. I'm not saying that, you know, but I don't think Beyonce is the best looking woman in the world. Who's the most attractive woman in the world to me would be Lynn Whitfield. She's absolutely beautiful. Or Erykah Badu. Stunningly beautiful, but it damn sure ain't me or Beyonce. But you know, I don't want to fight you, behave. I'm just saying I do not believe Beyonce is the most beautiful woman in the world. Okay, but you know, whatever keeps you hoes warm at night, you can, you know, go with that. I just don't want to fight none of you bitches. The way she described the procedure didn't sound like a cakewalk, but it didn't sound like something I couldn't handle either. Besides, I figured if I could handle 9 hours of labor, I could handle a 1-hour nose job. Since I was a little girl, I had always hated my nose, and now I saw a way to do something about it. You go, girl. You go, girl, because we live in a time that if you don't like it, you can change it. When Armstead got home, I asked him to find a plastic surgeon who was not only skillful enough, but sensitive enough to give me what I wanted. A more attractive nose that fit my face. Not a white girl nose that looked like it should be on a Barbie's face. He found a surgeon in Philly, and for Christmas, I treated myself to a brand new me. While no one tried to talk me out of having the operation, they told me I should check into the hospital under an assumed name. Pause. Speaking of Beyonce, don't you bitches think for 1 second that she ain't never got no work done on her face, because Beyonce got a nose job too. I said, why? I'm not trying to hide anything. I registered as Patti LaBelle. I was awake during the surgery, and while I didn't have a lot of pain, I did get the chills when I heard the doctor break my nose. Of course, I never lost my sense of humor about the whole thing. As we left the hospital, I told Armstead people were going to look at my bruised face and swear he had beat me up. My new nose healed in the new year, exactly as I had hoped. I was thrilled with the way it looked, but there would be even bigger thrills for me in the coming years. My first Grammy nomination, for starters. It would come for the Best R&B Vocal Performance Female for The Best Is Yet to Come. The single I cut with sax extraordinaire Grover Washington Jr. Boyfriend plays every kind of sax on the planet. Alto, soprano, tenor, and baritone, as well as clarinet, bass, and piano. And while he had already snagged a few Grammys, this was my first nomination, and it was a big deal to me. I dreamed of that baby sitting on my mantle. Unfortunately, that's where the Grammy stayed, in my dreams. It never made it to my house. Shaka Khan would take it home when the winners were finally announced. And she deserved it too. It's true what they say. It really is an honor just to be nominated. But Patti won't lie to you. It's no fun losing. What was fun was the steady rise in my popularity.